Most people spend their lives praying to get to heaven, without ever stopping to ask, "What will I do there?" It seems like a strange, almost naive question, but Padre Pio said that those who don't think about heaven can't live well on earth because that gives meaning to the journey, Pia. And what he revealed about eternal life isn't what most people imagine. It's not eternal rest. It's not clouds and harps. It's something that does, and you truly understand it, changes how you wake up tomorrow morning. 3 profound truths unveiled by a man who lived with as his constant companion, a man who endured suffering far greater than most of us will ever face, and yet who never lost his inner peace. If you have any unanswered questions about life, about suffering, about what God is doing while you wait, this video is for you. Ami. Write in the comments, "Heaven is my destiny," and stay until the end. What comes in the third revelation will stay with you for a long time. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Here, every week, we bring stories and teachings that strengthen the soul. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And now, settle in, because what follows deserves your full attention. Padre Pio spent 50 years living in a small convent in southern Italy, in a place most people wouldn't even know how to find on a map. There was nothing grand about it. Simple walls, cold corridors, the smell of incense mixed with the silence of the early mornings. And yet people came from all corners of the world to speak with that friar. They came with illnesses, with deaths, with broken marriages, with lost children, but they came carrying the weight that life places on the shoulders of those who no longer find meaning. And what did they find in him? They didn't find easy answers. They didn't find promises that everything would be all right overnight. They found a man who looked into the eyes of each one and seemed to see beyond. Someone who literally carried the marks of the cross in his hands and yet smiled, who suffered and still consoled, who lived, pulled on by limitations and yet transmitted a peace that couldn't fit in the hearts of those who received it. How can someone live like that? The answer is in what Father Pio saw with clarity, whereas the majority of us still live in a fog. He didn't see this life as the final destination. He saw it as a journey, a preparation. And heaven for him wasn't a theological concept to be debated. There was a certainty that sustained each day, each suffering, each dawn in prayer. He said he prayed for the whole world while everyone slept. And what sustained all this dedication? The awareness that what comes after is infinitely greater than what we experience here. That's why his words about eternity have a different weight. They aren't the words of someone who studied this subject in a book. They are the words of someone who lived with eternity as a constant companion. And the first thing he revealed about heaven begins exactly where we least expect it, in praise. In praise. Think about the last time you prayed. Maybe it was this morning, maybe it was days ago. And try to remember how it was. How many times did your mind wander? How often has tiredness won the day? How many times did words slip out of your mouth while your heart was elsewhere? Thinking about bills, problems, the day's conversations. This is not weakness. It's the human condition. Here on earth, we pray with what we have. And what we have is always imperfect, fragmented, interrupted. But Padre Pio said that prayer on earth is like a rehearsal, a preparation for something that the human tongue cannot properly describe. In heaven, the first reality we will experience is the incessant and perfect praise of God. But don't imagine something mechanical, repetitive, tiring. Imagine the opposite. Imagine a gratitude so intense that it overflows everywhere. A joy that cannot fit inside the chest, and that finds in adoration the only possible way to express itself. It is not an obligation imposed from the outside. It is an impulse that is born from within the soul that finally sees what it has always sought and never fully found here on earth. The Bible describes angels before God proclaiming without ceasing, "Holy, holy, holy." For centuries, readers have looked at this image and thought, how can this be good? How can it be freedom to always repeat the same thing? But the saints who meditated on this teach that it is not about repetition, it is about constant discovery. Each time the soul contemplates, it sees something new, a depth that has no bottom, a beauty that is inexhaustible. And praise is the natural response to this contemplation, which never ends because its object is infinite. There is the account of a woman who lost her husband after 42 years of marriage. She recounted that in the first few months she couldn't pray. The pain was too great. The words seemed empty, but one night she was sitting in the dark of the room, unable to sleep, and began to murmur the Lord's Prayer, almost without realizing it. As she prayed, she suddenly felt it. She neither saw nor heard, but she felt it, as if those words had reached some place she didn't know existed. As if her broken and imperfect prayer had been received by someone who understood exactly what she wanted to say, even when she herself didn't know. She later said, "I understood at that moment that praying isn't about speaking beautifully, it's about opening the door." Padre Pio would agree. Every Hail Mary prayed here, every Our Father murmured in weariness, every moment on my knees, even without feeling anything, all of this. Is this a rehearsed note for a chorus yet to come? A chorus in which the soul will participate with all its fullness, without distraction, without limitation, without the weight of imperfection. And if it's already difficult to imagine such praise, the second reality goes even deeper. There's a weight that most people carry without realizing how much it weighs. They only realize it when, for a rare instant, it disappears. You know that feeling of waking up on a vacation day, far from everything, and realizing that your chest is light? That there's nothing urgent, nothing threatening, nothing waiting to go wrong. That relief that seems strange precisely because we're not used to it. Well, that relief that lasts a few days and then goes away is just a distant shadow of what the second reality of heaven represents. In heaven, the soul lives in perfect freedom. Freedom from all pain, all temptation, all weakness, all fear. Padre Pio accompanied thousands of people throughout his life. He heard confessions for hours on end every day. And what he repeatedly saw was not just sin, it was suffering. It was suffering. Crushed by guilt, hearts burdened, souls paralyzed by fear. People living with old wounds, wounds that stubbornly refused to heal. He listened to all this and said, with a tenderness that those who knew him never forgot, all this will pass. Not as a vague phrase of consolation, but as a certainty. Think for a moment about the things that weigh most heavily on you. It might be the anxiety that appears unannounced. It might be the memory of something you did that still hurts. It might be the fear of losing someone you love. It might be that chronic insecurity that has accompanied your steps for so long that you no longer even realize it's there. Now imagine, not as a fantasy, but as a promise, that all this will one day disappear. It will not be erased as if it never existed. It will be healed, transformed, integrated into a greater understanding. Christ said that he will wipe every tear, not some, but all. And when the saints try to describe this reality, they stop because words only go so far and then become too small. Teresa of Avila said she preferred not to speak much about heaven because everything she said would be a reduction of what it truly is. Padre Pio agreed, but both were unanimous on one point. Heaven is the ultimate cure for the soul. There is no anxiety there, no sadness, no inexplicable tightness that sometimes appears in the chest for no apparent reason. There is no fear of loss. There is no weight of not being enough. Imagine loving without the risk of being abandoned. Imagine living without the shadow of the end. Imagine existing in complete peace. Not the superficial peace that comes when problems diminish, but a peace that comes from within and that no circumstance can touch. This is not a fantasy. It is where faith points. And every time we choose to forgive when it is difficult, every time we choose to trust when we don't understand, every time we choose to continue praying even without feeling anything, we are in our own way doing something imperfect, bringing us closer to that state that one day will be complete. But there is a third reality, and this is the one that most touches the human heart. This is what Padre Pio considered the most consoling of all, and also the most transformative for those who are still here in the midst of life, trying to understand why certain things happen the way they do. This is the question that almost everyone has asked, aloud or silently, on days of pain or sleepless nights. Why did this happen to me? Why that loss? Why that diagnosis? Why did that child go down the wrong path? Why did that marriage crumble? Why did that effort come to nothing? Why is it that God chose to remain silent at the very moment I needed to hear Him the most? These questions are not a lack of faith. They are the most honest expression of faith. They are the cry of those who believe there is meaning, but still cannot see where it is. Padre Pio said that in eternity every suffering offered to God is transformed into light, that every trial lived with faith reveals itself in the end as a stepping stone, that every cross carried becomes, in the perspective of eternity, a crown. In heaven, the third reality we will experience is the full understanding of the mysteries of our own lives. Imagine looking at your entire story, not just the beautiful moments, but the most painful, the most confusing, those that seemed unfair, and finally understanding the reason for each one. Not a cold, logical explanation, but a revelation, an overview in which everything that seemed chaos suddenly reveals itself as carefully woven, in which what seemed abandonment reveals itself as care, in which what seemed like a mistake reveals itself as a path. The saints described this as seeing life from God's perspective. Here on earth, we are like someone looking at an embroidery from the reverse side. Crossed candles, apparent disorder. In heaven, we'll see the embroidery correctly, and the beauty of the weaving will be stunning. There is a story that circulates among those who have studied the life of Padre Pio about a woman who lost her son at a young age in an accident, and who spent years carrying a bitterness mixed with faith. She prayed, but she was angry. She accepted it, but it hurt. Once, she confessed to Padre Pio and said she didn't understand, that she felt God had taken away what she loved most without explanation, And Padre Pio, with his direct way that sometimes frightened before consoling, said, "You will see everything, and when you see it, you won't want anything to have been different." Not because the pain wasn't real, but because the love behind it all was greater than the pain. This isn't a phrase to silence suffering. It's a promise that sustains those still in the midst of it. And there's a huge difference between the two things. The understanding that will come in heaven won't erase what we've lived through. It will reveal what was in what we lived through. It will show how God was present in every detail in the moments when we felt Him, and in the moments when it seemed He had gone away. In this revelation won't bring sadness. It will bring a joy unlike anything we've ever felt. A joy that includes past years and transforms them into part of the beauty of the whole story. Now faced with these three realities, the overflowing praise from within, the perfect freedom from all pain, and the full understanding of everything we experience, a question arises that Padre Pio frequently asked. Not in any accusatory way, but pastorally, almost with sadness in his eyes. Why do we still postpone what brings us closer to this? Heaven is not a destination that happens automatically. It is a direction we choose, or not, each day. And it's not about perfection. Padre Pio's human weakness better than anyone. He spent hours listening to the same faults, the same sins, the same fears, and he never gave up on anyone. But he insisted on one thing with a clarity that had no room for excuses. The time for conversion is now. Not after solving problems, Not when things settle down, not when you get more time in your day. Now, confession, he said, is not a ritual of constraint. It is a portal of freedom. It is the place where the soul releases what suffocates it and receives what renews it. Communion is not a pretty symbol. It is real nourishment for a real journey. The rosary is not superstition. It is a chain of love that binds us to what is eternal, while we are still in what is fleeting. Each of these gestures seems small when viewed closely, but Padre Pio taught that looking from eternity, it is precisely these gestures that mold the soul, that prepare it, that guide it. Like small stones that, placed one by one, build something that only makes sense when seen from And perhaps you are feeling, as you follow these words, a gentle restlessness, a desire to change something, a longing for something you have not yet experienced, but that you somehow recognize. This deserves attention. It is no coincidence that you have come across this video. It is no accident that these words are reaching you today. Padre Pio believed that God speaks in many ways, rarely in thunder, almost always in a whisper. And each time the soul responds to that whisper with a gesture of faith, something happens in the invisible. Those who pray for us rejoice, and little by little the soul aligns itself with what it was meant to be. Now, before concluding, it's worth remembering what we've journeyed together so far. Heaven, according to the teachings that Padre Pio lived and transmitted, is not just a beautiful place where we go to rest. It's not clouds and harps. It's a state of fullness that completely transforms the soul's existence. The first reality is the praise that springs from the purest joy, not as an obligation, but as an explosion of love from a soul that finally sees what it has always sought. The second reality is perfect freedom. Without fear, without guilt, without pain, without anxiety, without the weight of any unhealed wound. And the third, perhaps the most consoling of all, is the full understanding of one's own life. The moment when everything that seemed meaningless reveals itself as part of a work of love greater than we can imagine now. These truths are not to be kept, they are to be carried. Carry them when the day weighs heavily. Carry them when prayer seems empty. Carry these prayer beads when doubt appears in the middle of the night and tries to convince you that none of this makes sense. And if today you can make a concrete gesture towards heaven, do it. Do it. Pray a mystery of the Rosary. Go to Mass with renewed attention. Seek confession if it's been a while. Forgive someone who is waiting for that forgiveness without knowing it. Because every small gesture made with prepares something that eyes have not yet seen and ears have not yet heard. Write in the comments, "Heaven is my destiny." Not as an automatic phrase, but as a true desire, as a conscious choice of someone who decides to look in the right direction. And if there is someone in your life who is carrying a heavy burden, who is full of unanswered questions, who needs hope to continue, share this video with that person. Share this video with that person. Sometimes the right message comes from a loving hand. This channel exists for a simple reason: to bring comfort, faith, and hope to those who need it. But to continue doing this, we need you. Leave your like. It's a small gesture that helps this message reach more people. Share this with whomever you feel needs to hear it today. And if this space has been a place of strength for you, consider becoming a channel member. It's not just support. It's being part of a community that chooses to walk in faith together every day. We are many, and together, this message will go further. May Our Lady, called the Gate of Heaven, guide your steps carefully on the days when the path seems confusing. May Padre Pio intercede for your perseverance in moments when faith outweighs courage. And may something that was said here today remain not only in your memory but in the deepest place in your heart, where the things that truly matter tend to land and where no storm can erase what was planted with truth. Until next week, and remember, heaven is not just a destination, it's a direction.